The Holden Commodore SSV. If you're a loyal Wheels reader or watcher, then there isn't a single thing I can tell you about this car that you don't know already, including the sad fact that they don't make these anymore. But that raises the obvious question, that with a car that is so iconic and accomplished, what could you possibly replace it with? Ever since Kia announced it was going to produce this car, we have been waiting on tenterhooks. Why is the Stinger possibly a competitor to the Commodore? At the front end we've got a twin turbocharged 3.3 litre V6 with power that's comparable. At the back end we've got rear wheel drive, and in the middle we've got practicalities like a spacious cabin for 5 adults. But one of my favourite things about this car is when you find the space to do it, this car goes sideways just as easily.
Or perhaps there's this, the Volkswagen Arteon.
Now, I know what you're thinking. The Volkswagen Arteon isn't such an obvious competitor as, say, something like the Kia Stinger, but hear me out, because this car has a spacious cabin with as much room as the other two and room for 5 adults, and it also competes on price, give or take a few grand, and it's a similar size as well. But there are key differences, of course, one of those being it's a much smaller engine. At the front end we've got a 2 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder with 206 kilowatts, so it is down on a bit of power. But where the other two are rear wheel drive, this has all-wheel drive, and that can make all the difference.
We're pitching the Stinger and Arteon against each other on a 3-day blast under the constant watchful eye of the Commodore SSV Redline to see if a German and South Korean can even come close to fulfilling the discerning requirements of Australia's performance motoring fraternity.
But for any car that claims to be an alternative to the mighty SSV, performance is a key figure. So we've brought all three here to our favourite dragway, the Heathcote Raceway, to see exactly what they can do in an environment that the SSV knows like the back of its hand. So we begin with the benchmark in this segment and the Holden Commodore SSV. So this car, in an environment like this, is its natural habitat. We've got a big, naturally aspirated V8 at the front and rear wheel drive at the back. What's not to like about a recipe like that? So let's see exactly what it can do and set a grade for the others to beat. Plenty of wheel spin off the start, as you'd expect. That classic Commodore V8 anthem blaring from the tailpipes. And that white line is coming up very quickly, 170 odd as we pass the line there. Those long legs of a V8, it's going to be very hard to beat at high speed. There's no doubt this car is born for an environment like this. Now, we certainly wouldn't be the first to suggest that the Kia Stinger might pose as some kind of alternative to the Holden Commodore. Not that that car is replaceable in any way, really. It's got a turbocharged 3.3 litre V6 at the front, producing a comparable amount of power to the Commodore, and at the back end we've got rear wheel drive as well. So on paper alone, this car is looking like it could be a car focused at a sporty enthusiast driver and something that might do quite well in an environment like this. It's certainly quick. But did you see how it got off the line? There was no ceremony or spectacle or theatre. It sounds pretty good when it starts revving up around the top end of the limiter, but I don't know, is it missing some of that drama? And so, to the unknown quantity, the Volkswagen Arteon. It's not the first car you might associate with drag racing or performance testing in an environment like this. But it does have a lot of the oily bits of the Golf R. That means all-wheel drive and a 206 kilowatt engine at the front. So it should do all right, shouldn't it? Wow, like traction off the line is incredible thanks to that four-wheel drive. The dual clutch transmission is really snappy, really aggressive gear changes, and that white line comes up incredibly quickly. I'm not sure quite how long its legs will be up against a V6 and a V8 competitor, but the signs are pretty good.
The Kia and VW differ greatly in their mechanical approach and driving experience, but are more closely aligned in their visual impact. Both adopt the so-called four-door coupe styling. Both compete in segments not previously occupied by either brand. There's nothing else on the road that looks quite like this brace of bruisers. Rear seat comfort was one of the Commodore's best selling points, with bountiful head, elbow and knee room for up to 3, albeit lacking a few features. With their coupe-like profiles though, the two newcomers can't match sheer comfort in the second row with a firmer ride and more snug accommodation. But what really matters is how the pair behave on a public road.
The Kia Stinger goes unbelievably well. This is a properly quick car. It's got more torque than the Commodore, and from the get-go you can really feel that. Acceleration is really strong. My one criticism I have is that the exhaust note is not there to match it. The note of the Commodore is unmistakably brilliant and something we're really going to miss. And if you want the same or something that even comes close with the Kia, you have to step up to the GT, which gets the sport exhaust, which was actually partially developed in Australia. Now we've got really good athletic dynamics in corners, but it's actually a lot softer than I was expecting, and that means a really comfortable ride. On the outside, the Stinger looks fantastic. We've been getting comments about this car everywhere we've gone over the last 3 days. But when it comes to the interior, it's not such a strong performer. It's little marks against its name, like this plasticky centre to the steering wheel. One of the first things you're going to see when you get in the car and just say, well, that doesn't look sort of with the quality of the rest of the car. Another black mark against its name is this roofline. A beige in a sports car, surely that should be black. And finally, we've got this plasticky trim everywhere that on first instance looks like it's carbon fibre, which would be great in a sports car, but then you realise actually no, it's fake as well. I can't help but thinking, just with a few little bit of extra efforts in those areas, and the Kia would be an all-round much stronger performer. When it comes to performance, off the mark the Arteon is actually incredibly quick. It's got enough power, and combined with all the traction of four-wheel drive, we've got so much grip, and you can just jump in this car having never driven it before and feel like some kind of rally star. There's so much grip from either end, and because we're sat further forward and there's not a great big bonnet stretching out ahead of us like the other two, you feel like you're really in on the action. It just instills you with this sense of confidence right from the word go, like you've known this car for years. Volkswagen has very generously given the Arteon 14 different suspension settings. Now, is it just me that thinks that's a little bit excessive? 3 would probably do. 2 perhaps, but 14, the good news is that somewhere in amongst those 14 settings you're going to find something that suits you. From a very supple and silky comfort ride, which is excellent for day-to-day work, and also at the sportier end of the settings, it is very firm and involving. 14 though, come on. Where the Volkswagen really excels though, compared to the other two, is in the interior. In the back seats, there's plenty of room, it's cozy and a little bit dark, but overall the quality and finish is excellent. Jump in the Volkswagen and you can tell that this is a company that's been doing really good interiors for decades.
We will always love the Commodore, and a whole gamut of its features will forever be irreplaceable. Those looking for sheer brawn, muscle and homegrown familiarity will continue to turn their noses up at overseas alternatives. But the game has changed. At the dawn of a new era, we have to dry our eyes and look to a future where naturally aspirated V8s are all but extinct, and the next generation of high-performance sedans is previewed by the Arteon and Stinger. The Volkswagen does a sterling job, snapping at the heels of two more powerful adversaries, and brings a touch of class that the others simply can't match. But it's the Stinger that prevails, with a package that is impossibly complete for any company's foray into new territory.